Ready to go? Call this meeting to order. At this time, if you're able, please rise for our national anthem.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
This time I'd like to read our land acknowledgement. Niagara region is situated on treaty land. This land is steeped in the rich history of the First Nations such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The City of Port Colborne stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship of the lands on which we live. If I can get Councillor Hoyle and Councillor Bodner to move the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda or any questions to the agenda? All in favor? That's carried. I have one disclosure of interest tonight. It's on confidential item 21.4, the CAO report of 2023-24, and that's for Councillor Beauregard. If I could have Councillors Danch and Elliott move the regular meeting of council from May the 9th, 2023. Questions to those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Items lifted this evening are 8.2, 8.3, and 9.3. If I could have Councillors Bruno and Bagu move the remaining items. All in favor? That's carried. Presentations. We have one this evening. It's the City of Port Colborne Community Safety and Enforcement Division, and Chief Lawson will lead us in that. Chief, who's also acting as our CAO this evening.
Good afternoon, Council. I appreciate your time to be able to present you basically an annual update, a glimpse of what we did in 2022 for community safety and enforcement. First one is our traditional what our team consists of. So within the department we have two divisions, one's fire and the other is bylaw. I'm not going to go into all the names, but the fire chief, we have an executive assistant. If anybody's ever called the fire hall, they know Catherine's voice. It's always very welcoming. Mike DeGasperis is our deputy chief who steps in and covers off whenever I'm not around, and also takes care of the operation aspects of the department. And over the full-time platoons of 3, we have a Captain Steers, Radzikowski, Henry, and Benner. On the bylaw side, we all know Sherry's been with bylaw for 30 plus years, a steady force and just a wealth of knowledge that helps me out as I'm still learning a lot about the bylaw and how the city operates that. Travis is our senior inspector, Carter and Madison. One thing I'd like to mention about Madison, while it's put down there as an intake clerk, we've really started to utilize her more out in the field. I'm going to say for the 6 months of, we're in our busy time right now, she's actually out in the field 50% of the time. Last year she ran with our grass complaint program, 200 some odd files. So it's really nice to be able to utilize all our people and get the most out of our people that we have. So, I mean, I think this is our 4th or 5th year talking about it. Community safety. The fire marshal always runs on the 3 lines of defense: prevention, or public education, prevention, which is code enforcement, and then when needed, we take action with our suppression. So within our community, I like to think that we're the caretakers of the community, whether it's an emergency response, fire, car accidents, medicals, hazmat. My passion, how I came up through the fire service, is prevention and making sure our safety programs are there so our community is safe. With the education piece, we serve our community not just with fires, but we will come out. You have a flooded basement, if we can, we will assist you. And we try to keep our community clean on the bylaw side, so it's inviting to any visitors that come in to our city. We partner with multiple community members, whether it's Port Cares, Community Living, NRP is a great partner of ours. We also enforce all of council's bylaws, whether it's burn bylaws, fireworks, or grass property standards. We provide support wherever we're needed, and whatever we're asked for, we will try our best to help out. So within the bylaw services, our achievements and successes for 2022, at a glance, we hit 871 recorded complaints. So we kind of mark complaints as a file, whether it was a proactive complaint that came from our proactive out in the community, or we actually received a complaint. So it's 871 files, which we're actually up 11% over our 5-year average. I'm going to say that 11% increase is a lot due to our proactive. We're actually out looking for the issues, not just waiting for that phone call to deal with it. I just put in the grass complaints, so 15 different grass complaints last year. That's one of our major time killers. Staff is out right now. We're at 35 orders, properties that we've already dealt with. The mayor, I met with him today. He's given me another 2. So that's an ongoing thing that we're looking at. Interesting, and I love stats, 280 parking tickets last year, which is down 44%. And I attribute this to the pandemic, just that difference in whether we've educated people or we're seeing a little difference in the migration patterns of the GTA and what's coming up to Port Colborne. Lot maintenance is 160. That can be anything from a major cleanup in a backyard to someone's put a couch out in the front and they're not allowed that. And property standards, that's probably one of the ones that we deal with that's the most difficult. We all know that property that's not looking good, the building itself, and we've dealt with multiple files. We can get to the point of getting it fixed up, or the order lapses and we're allowed to fix it up. We have a difficult time getting a contractor in that wants to step on a property when they're not welcome. And that's a lot of the times when you guys ask us about a property that, geez, it looks like heck, and why is it still looking like heck? It's because of some issues that we're having getting people willing to do that work. Some of the changes, though, in the community that I'm proud of in 2022, one thing is we wanted to change the look of bylaw. It was that enforcement piece, just, you know, hard-nosed tactics. And one of the things that we did bring in last year was receipt for tickets. During a snowfall, staff goes out and tickets vehicles on the side of the road if they are interfering with snowplow activities. Last year we actually put it out to those people that did get tickets, and this is, I mean, believe it or not, we were in lockdown at that time. It seems like forever ago. That these people, if they went out and spent that money in the community at a restaurant, they bring the receipts, we waive that ticket. So it was some goodwill. Social media actually blew up, and I want to say that we got some really good education piece of that people understand they can't park on the roads during a snow event. Clean Community Days, we brought in waste containers last year, 2 dates. I think we took out somewhere between 50 and 60 tons of garbage, which sounds like a lot, but it also created a way that this garbage got cleaned up. So our staff didn't have to go out, put orders on. We do lot maintenance orders and bring in contractors. So I think it was a great time saver. And for those that are watching, our first Clean Community Day is this Saturday. it'll save me some time at staff comments. 1 Kalele Street, Saturday from 9 till noon, or if the dumpsters fill up or the waste containers fill up, it'll be done at that point. A real game changer for us is the administrative monetary penalty system, AMPS. It's been around forever. It was always a piece of parking, which we all know of. We've added a lot to that within signs, snow removal, property standards, lot maintenance, noise, and fences. This is the piece where the property stands. We're just starting to see the benefits of this, where we couldn't get a contractor out. If we ticket, we ticket, we ticket. Eventually we get that offenders, they notice what we're doing, and then they'll start fixing it. So we're starting to get a little bit more compliance that way instead of the old just part ones or orders. Some of the current projects we're working on, just updating a lot of the existing bylaws, property standards, lot maintenance, fence, and the boulevard and snow removal bylaws are all sitting with our legal firm. We're just waiting to get the final okay, and then we'll be bringing to you, hopefully, before the end of June, but possibly July. Sherry is awesome at supporting other departments. There's a great history within the city. We do have some new employees, so she is that resource to inform people. And the perfect one is like fire routes or no parking zones, just that information. I did talk to you a couple weeks ago about a vacant building database. We're busy getting that ready. It is in front of Sarah Premier right now, so I'm hoping by July again that can come through. One of the promotions we're doing is the Poop and Scoop program. Staff is seeing somebody do something well. We're actually stopping, giving them a little Port Colborne, I don't know, whatever you want to call them, little baggies there, just so that they can help keep our city clean too. Communications, we're starting with the helps of comms, a little bit of social media tips, much like Water Wednesday. I don't know, bylaw Thursdays, I don't know. We'll see how that works out. And like I said, Clean Community Days, it was so well received last year. I think we'll be continuing on with that with council's support. Some future plans is revamping the website just so it's a little bit more user friendly and bylaws are out there so everybody can understand them. Staff is diligently working on a guide so that residents, again, have a greater understanding of bylaws, so hopefully we have a few less files each and every year. One thing that we did with on the fire side was we created a strategic plan just to jumpstart our prevention program. We want to do that, a strategic plan just for bylaw, to get some goals and a little better direction for the next 5 years. And consolidating some bylaws is very important. The parking is all over the place right now, unfortunately. We want to consolidate that into one, and then it's one reference instead of multiple. So for the fire department, some of our statistics at a glance. This is probably the one that I'm most proud of, is our smoke and CO compliance. When I started in 2025, we had a good glimpse of what we were at. We were at 25% over time, and some direction from the past chief and myself, we're actually at 55%. So we're looking at about 800 homes a year. I think we have a good sample of the community to say that we are at 55%, and we're hoping to continue that going up. We had 31 structure fires last year, which is down 26 during COVID. We hit a peak of 41 fires 2 years ago, and we are seeing that come down. Hopefully a little bit from our efforts and a little bit from COVID not being locked up anymore has changed the patterns of people. Last year we were just shy of 1,000 calls, 976, which again is up 9% from 2021. 2021 we weren't running the medicals. That was a direction of the Office of Health, that fire was not to put themselves in that position during the pandemic. So our calls were lower, but we are still down over the 10-year average. As I stated earlier, we did just under 800, well, it's 743 home inspections, which was up about 9% from 2021. One of the things that I'm most proud of is our employee engagement survey. This is the third one that we've done as myself as chief. This is the third time that we've actually increased. We're third within all the departments within the city with, I think it was a 4.24 overall rating. So I'm pretty proud of that we're moving the needle in the right direction. Some of our successes, we went through certification for just general fire and extrication. We've gotten into our technical aspects. So we did rope last year, or the year before. Our water and ice program was completely updated. With your generous support, we've updated all our equipment, and we have a real strong program in place. We inked an automatic aid agreement with Wainfleet that saw us run into Wainfleet 11 times, but we also received them coming this way 20 times, which in essence, when we signed that deal, we ended up with an extra engine and a tanker for our municipality, which to me was quite a bonus. The Blizzard Elliott, I'm looking at Steve here. I don't think I've ever talked to him so much over a 5-day period, but I'm very proud how we mitigated what we could, minimized where we could, and maximized where needed. I know we took some heat. Maybe people didn't understand with warming centers, we're trying to keep people off roads, but I think for some guys that probably never gone through a blizzard like that, the city did a good job in its response. I was thinking about it today. We've gone through so many windstorms, but I never thought I'd have to do one blindfolded. And the firefighter games was something that we introduced last year, a way to build camaraderie. We brought the families into the hall so they could see what we did. But this, to me, is also that retention piece that we're trying to gain, so we're not having that turnover that we're living with each and every year. Current projects, our data management system first due is our migration away from Lotus Notes. We actually go live for the first pieces come July 1st. As I stated previously, we came up with a prevention strategic plan. We came out of COVID flat, I'm sad to say, but it's kickstarted the division. We found 9 key directions and 40 action items. We actually have the crews. They've gone through all the schools of public education. They're now doing in-service inspections, issuing orders. So we've actually gone from prevention staff of 1, and we're up to 13. And I'm very proud of that piece that's moving forward. We're doing an emergency management review, just where everybody fits within the organization, and adding some training needs where needed. And we're working on Engine 2's replacement, which we're hoping will be here by the end of July. Future plans and strategies with technology. I think we've come a long ways with interconnected wireless smoke alarms. We've been pushing that hard on our social media. Hopefully tonight we'll work towards expanding our hazmat capabilities, which with some partnerships with industry should get us to where I'd like to see us be. Providing support for mental health. We do have a peer on-call app that we're part of between, Western and another university I should know, but it's a trial for first responders. It's a 3-month to see how that goes, and that hopefully will build into our mental health strategy. A community risk assessment, we did start it. It's part of Ontario Regulation 37818 that mandates a community assessment. We did one at the beginning of COVID, and now with that new Stats Canada has come out, we just have to change some numbers and update some things, but we'll be in compliance there. Recruitment and retention is an ongoing concern of ours. That's why we've had the firefighter games, and we're working on a few other things like Camp Molly. And at some point, we need to work on a master fire plan just to figure out where we're going, where we need to be to match the growth of the city. Lastly, something that I'm always very proud of as being part of the fire service is our focus on community. I'm not going to read them all off, but our staff put in a lot of time on our own time helping the community, whether it's with toy drives, delivering food. And I think what's really neat is you'll see my kids are there, my colleagues' kids are there. So it's a family tradition that comes out, and it's one of the pieces that Port Colborne should be proud of their fire service for. That's all I have for you. Any questions?
Chief, thank you. Councillor Baggio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much, Chief. One question, you mentioned about the property standards. It's difficult to achieve compliance because local contractors don't want to come in and do the job. What do the other municipalities in Niagara region do? Do they get outside contractors, like St. Catharines would get Niagara Falls contractors, or is nobody getting this stuff done?
Through the mayor to Councillor, I'm going to say the mass majority is not getting done within the region. That would be something that I would have to take back to the region and ask some questions if anybody's had some success in that way. But right now, it's not just a Port Colborne contractor. I'm saying if we go to RFP, nobody's touching that RFP.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno?
Thank you. Excellent report, Chief. I'm like you. I like data and what it can unearth. I noticed this year, and maybe it was in previous years. I didn't notice it as clearly, but like under calls for assistance. So can I assume that that's predominantly medical calls?
Chief?
Through the mayor to Councillor, I think we're running around the 40% mark for medicals within that number. I know that in the past there's been some conversations about whether fires should be going to a medical. I can say that we are probably beating EMS to most calls 50 to 60% of the time, just with the backlogs that they're seeing at the hospitals.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I don't think it's ever been more important that we're running those medicals, and frankly, the more that we can help the community that way,
sure.
I think it's important.
Councillor?
Actually, where I was going with that wasn't so much about the medical. You talked about how there was a drop during COVID when I think the order was like not to. I was looking at it more from the point of were there lessons learned? Did you feel there were adequate coverage? More because I thought, it tweaked my interest that you're growing smoke detector and CO compliance. And that often takes resources, manpower, and time. And I was going to go about this way. Like on the 743 home inspections, like those, like CO2, are preventative rather than reactive. And I think they head off big problems. Do you have any sense of, on those home inspections, like, are you finding, there's 3 infractions? Like, do you have that broken down to what's coming out of home inspections?
Chief?
Through the mayor to the councillor, I can do a dive into the data and get that information for you. It would take a little bit of time. Unfortunately, our computer system right now doesn't allow it.
Okay.
Give me a couple months and I think I can pull that out pretty easy for you.
So again, what I was trying to do is see if medical was being well taken care of. Obviously, you bring up a great point about how stressed EMS is now, and I would always put that ahead of home inspections. But I just didn't know if you knock down some of those other numbers, can you increase time, right, on things like home inspections that may save lives as a proactive way, just the way smoke alarms and that, because certainly there's no question in my mind that the smoke alarm and CO2 compliance is, you don't know what you don't know, so you've saved lives, you just don't know how many you've saved because they complied and they got out alive. And so that's why I was just looking to see if resources, as I think through the years, structural fires, building codes, inspections are coming down, shifting the emphasis for time onto those proactive things, I think is quite important. And I wouldn't look at it as, you would often hear, well, they answer all these medical calls. Is that really necessary? I look at it more as what can you shift and do elsewhere, because your people are there. And if they do those kind of things, they would be helping out too. But you've answered my question in the sense that you can get back to me on. The last question I have is, with respect to the bylaw side, if you could, So I've told people through the years, and it's been successful, sometimes, it's mostly been absentee landlords. They kind of get on the frequent flyer list, where the citizen doesn't have to keep calling about a reoccurring property. I think that's worked extremely well. I think what I've not really known is what gets someone on the frequent flyer list. So I'll say to them now, customer service, bylaw enforcement group, CC me. If that keeps happening periodically, we don't want you to have to call every 3 weeks, me to forward it. We get it on sort of the program. But is there a trigger to that? What can I tell people that, you're not going to have to call every 2 weeks for the next 3 years till that becomes more of an automatic?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council. On the fire side, we have 1 visit. After that, you get your 2nd visit, you're on our frequent flyer. With bylaw, it's a little bit different because, there's so many more infractions. I hate to say it, but once you annoy me, you're on our frequent flyer list. And it's just, you start seeing that constant reminder and the constant address. That's really our trigger.
Okay.
We try to work with residents. We understand there's good landlords, bad landlords,
Yep.
good tenants, bad tenants, and there's such a migration. I can't believe how often, and I saw this in other municipalities, how often a multi-residential will trade hands. So sometimes that owner that we were having problems all of a sudden stops or sells that property, you fall off the list. So it's a migrating list, and sometimes we catch it, sometimes we don't, as far as the frequent flyers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the chief. I'd just like to acknowledge something on the bylaw side that I think you get a bad rap for once in a while. I know we run into it in Ward 4, where you can't control everything. Or do you have jurisdiction over everything? And what we run into occasionally, and more so lately, is say the hunting or firearms side of it. And I just want to assure the public that it isn't something that bylaw is just pushing aside and don't want to deal with. It's and if you could confirm this, that you just don't have authority over everything. And what I've noticed is that that bylaw certainly keeps Monique and I informed on if you don't have authority, but you also can touch base or talk to the people that do, just to give them a heads up. But is that a true statement where you don't have authority over everything?
Chief?
Through the mayor to councillor, you were very poetic in that. I don't think I can brush on that to make it any stronger. We aren't responsible for everything. I would like to say, though, that if it's not something that we have jurisdictional over, we sure will help you try to find those people that get there. We're just not going to dump your call and say, well, that's not us, so, hit the road. We will try to help our residents with getting that answer.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Chief. Just real quick, with regards to the blizzard, and I know that we took quite a beating on social media over, we didn't have this, we didn't do that, we didn't do this quick enough. What did you and the department learn? Should we have an event like that next year or the year after? Because I know with regards to warming centers, that was a huge bone of contention with the public about how we didn't have them, and we should have had them and didn't know about them and things like that. And I just wondered what was one or two of the greatest takeaways that you got?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, I think the biggest one is communication. I think all day long we can justify why that warming center wasn't up and running. At the time of that blizzard, Cheyenne Stevens was our only comms person. She did a great job. She did everything that we could ask for and then some. But that was a lot to put on one person just to keep getting that message out and quite frankly, get ahead of us on our thinking, because we were not just thinking about communications with the public, we were thinking about dealing with the emergency. So I think now the city with Jasmine is in a much stronger place, and I think the communication piece will flow a lot better. Other than that, honestly, I think talking with Steve, I think we adjusted and modified where needed, and I think we did an actual pretty good job. I'm happy with how our staff reacted.
Yeah, just to remind, we did have warming centers. As you stated, they didn't, and I mean a few, didn't think they opened soon enough. But the problem is when you declare a state of emergency between us, Fort Erie, Wainfleet, the Niagara region, and you have the Ontario Provincial Police, the Niagara Regional Police telling you to stay off the roads, it was not in our best interest. And we sat and had these conversations over the phone to send people out in a blizzard to get stuck in cars. That makes life even worse for the people that may have to do rescues. So, you can't get staff to the valet center where we held it, which actually turned out very well. And initially we had one staff member there who did a great job, and then the region and the Red Cross came to help us. But we got to look out for all sides to the equation. One is your public, to keep them as safe as possible. Our EMS, our police, our fire, to keep them as safe as possible. It was ugly out there. And to tell people, hey, we've got this warming center, get there, when you can't, when you're driving down a street and there's a bus, a truck, a vehicle in a snowbank in the middle of the road, and to have somebody hit that, we can't do that. We could just not take that chance. You're better to stay in your house until we can get to you to help you, or you can get out and get to the Valley Center in this case, if your power was still out at the time. So just want to make sure, because and there was a few people that took shots at us, but quite frankly, I saw a lot of people agreeing with what the city did because it was so dangerous, and they had family members that got stuck out in there. And they said people shouldn't have been out there. So, anyways, thanks. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, just to pick up on that, yeah, because there was a lot of people, not a lot. There was a few people that were
never a
complaining
lot,
about it.
believe me.
and you look back on those few days, I couldn't see across the street for 2.5 days, and this, the same thing. How are you supposed to run a warming center when you can't get there? We can't get people like the Red Cross to get into town to do it with the police. But that also goes back to communications. And like you said, Chief, that's something that we've probably made the greatest gains in now, is that we can get the message out. These are the reasons why we can't open until such time as the weather calms down, right? We don't want to put anybody in danger. So I think that was part of the problem, that message didn't get through to more people. But it's good to hear that we picked up on the things that we needed to, and we did what we could with help from neighboring municipalities who really came to help us out too. So I'm glad to hear that.
And with the increase of frequencies, the chief was the deputy at the time with the first big windstorm back in 2019, and then we've had one big one since then, and then a huge snowstorm. We're seeing storms come faster as opposed to being out 5 years or 10 years. They're coming, once every other year, it seems. Even in the first bad windstorm, you had all of downtown impassable, and most of it was down power lines, and people out just driving around to see what was going on. Not safe. Storms like that, the biggest thing, and Cheyenne did this, stay home. We will get to you if when the time comes. Our staff and with EMS and police will get to you if there's an emergency. But to get out on the road and then get stuck somewhere where we don't know where you are, that's the toughest spot. So anyways, Chief, anything to add? Any more questions? Great. Thank you and your staff. Appreciate it. We have one delegation this evening, council. We have Darcy Cooley, Request to repeal bylaw 67883820 to regulate open-air burning and recreational fires in the city of Port Colborne. Welcome, Darcy. Just to remind you, you do have 10 minutes, but I will remind you with a minute left so you know where you stand in your presentation. And welcome.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you see my screen or?
Yes?
Okay. All right. Yes, I'm here to try to get you guys to consider repealing the bylaw. The reason why I am asking for this is because there are many health conditions as well as safety conditions for this. All right, now I do have one question to ask you. Do I change the screen or do you change the screen?
You do, Simon? Simon will change. Yep, we can do that.
Okay. I'd like to council to consider the repeal of bylaw 6788/3820 that allows open air burning and recreational wood fires in the city of Port Colborne. The bylaw was established by council in 2020 at the start of the COVID pandemic. The allowance of wood field burning within city limits gravely affects people's health, damages interiors of homes, possessions, and presents a safety concern to the citizens of Port Colborne. I have no issue with wood fire burns conducted in rural areas of the city of Port Colborne. Now, Stats Canada states that there are 20,000 people as of the 2021 census, 164 people per square kilometer. However, this also includes rural areas. Therefore, the actual density of people within the city limits of Port Colborne itself is probably much higher. So for ease of percentage, etc., I'll just put it up to 200 people per square area, which is obviously with buildings and apartments coming into effect and more town halls or townhouses, the population is going to expand ever so more. Next slide. There are many dangers of wood fire pits. Burning wood produces more carbon dioxide than oil and gas. It also produces methane. Both of these, in particular methane, is a powerful global warming gas, which hinders the achievement of climate neutrality. Soot released from wood burning fire pits also blankets the Arctic snow and increases the melt rates. Now, wood fire pits are also potential fire hazards to surrounding structures such as homes, sheds, etc. The Consumer Product Safety Commission cited that wood fire pits put children at risk. The Journal of Burn Care and Research cited that children 19 and younger accounted for almost 11,000 burns due to fire pits between 2006 and 2017. Next screen. Now, the ideal location of a wood fire pit should be approximately 20 to 25 feet away from a house's garage, shrubs, trees, gardens, and fences. It should also not be located in windy areas. Now, there are not many houses in Port Colborne that can accommodate this safety measure due to lot size, building congestion, foliage, trees, and so on. A fire's heat dries out everything above and around it, and if something becomes dry and brittle enough over time and gets to a certain temperature, it'll ignite spontaneously. Therefore, you don't need a spark. The heat alone will ignite whatever's around it. From the late 1800s to the 1940s, balloon frame wood construction was the fastest and easiest way to construct multi-storied houses. Next screen. Therefore, outdoor wood fire pits are dangerous to wood structures and balloon frame structured houses, which there are many of in the city of Port Colborne. Now, balloon frame, just to explain, is a continuous wood stud wall that stretches from the home's foundation up to the attic with no stop breaks. The only stop breaks that you have is if you have a doorway or a window in order to stop the flow of air from top to bottom. Now, you also have horizontal spread between the wood floor joists because in there you also have open space. You have a gap. So oxygen being forced within the house actually spreads the fire greater. Next slide, please. Now there's also damage due to what we use in our wood fire pits, and that is the emerald ash borer and the hemlock woolly alugid. Now, these are two invasive species in wood that are regularly burned in fire pits. And if you have no one to inspect what is being burned in a fire pit, you can spread these insects geographically throughout the region. Next slide. Fine smoke particles from fire pits invades homes' interiors and damages belongings. This includes curtains and upholstery, which are the most damaged, then bedding, clothing, wood furniture, floors, rugs, drywall, ceiling, plastics, medicines, hygiene products, cosmetics, and foods. Now, the chemicals found in these smoke particles that land upon belongings expose you to harmful toxic substances from these smoke-damaged items. Therefore, sitting in a smoke-damaged chair or living in smoke-damaged walls is enough for these toxic chemicals to make their way into your lungs, through to your bloodstream, and have serious health consequences on individuals. Next slide. Smoke is comprised of tiny bits of solids and liquids of partially burned wood. One of the pollutants of most concern in wood smoke is fine particulate matter. When you breathe in wood smoke, you inhale this fine particulate matter deep into your lungs. These particles contain toxic substances that remain in your lungs for months and cause changes that lead to disease and structural damage. Most wood particles are 2.5 microns or less in size, which makes them smaller, 1/30th of the diameter of a human hair. Next slide, please. These PM2.5 particles are known as fine particles. They are so small that they get past the respiratory tract's defenses and reach the deepest areas of the lungs. It is this area of the lung, known as the alveoli, wherein tiny air sacs allow oxygen to enter the bloodstream. Instead, these toxic particles pass into the bloodstream. These particles carry toxic gases that are harmful to the lung and cause inflammation, causing the lungs delicate tissue and limiting the lungs' ability to absorb oxygen. Next slide. There are many substances that are toxic found on small particles. Nitrogen oxides cause lung and airway irritation, increase the risk of lung infections for people with COPD and asthma. Volatile organic carbons irritate respiratory tract and cause cancer. Formaldehyde causes headaches, coughing, wheezing. Hydrocarbons cause lung inflammation, coughing, wheezing, asthma, and COPD. Benzene suppresses the immune system. Sorry, next slide. Carbon monoxide reduces the lungs' ability to absorb oxygen, and this puts the lungs and the cardiovascular system on great risk, and you have a consequence. Acrolein irritates the eyes and the respiratory tract. Dioxins cause cancer, and sulfur dioxide causes bronchial spasms, respiratory inflammation in people with pre-existing respiratory disease. Next slide. So there are many people with heart or lung diseases, diabetes, young children, women who are pregnant, and older adults that are very affected by particle pollution exposure from wood smoke. Next slide. 20% of Canadians have a serious respiratory disease such as asthma, COPD, lung cancer, tuberculosis, cystic fibrosis, and respiratory distress syndrome. Wood smoke exacerbates these conditions. Wood smoke can also trigger heart attacks and stroke in already affected cardiovascular disease. Fine particle pollution is also associated with premature death in people suffering from heart disease and COPD. The Journal of Environmental Research tied wood smoke to inflammation and clotting since its toxins enter the bloodstream. Fine particulate matter in air pollution is linked to a 9% increase in COVID-19 mortality. Those that have recently recovered from COVID-19 or are now battling it will feel the effects of smoke more. Next slide.
One more minute, Darcy.
Next slide, please. Type 1 diabetics exposed to wood smoke particulate matter experienced overall higher glucose levels and fasting blood sugar. Chronic inflammation caused from wood smoke particulate matter is believed to be the mechanism responsible for the buildup of insulin resistance and difficulty controlling blood sugar levels. So obese type 2 diabetic patients are also affected. And there's an increase in ambulations due to high and low sugar reactions due to smoke particulate matter after the event occurs. Next slide. According to Fire Pit Magazine, propane fire pits are much safer. The only drawback is the production of carbon monoxide. So given that there are 200 people in the population per square kilometer, there are approximately 180 out of those 200 people affected by one of these diseases. So 90% of the population in a square kilometer in Port Colborne is affected by fire pit smoke. That's why I'm asking you to withdraw this bylaw, since it's in everyone's best interest.
Great. Thank you, Darcy. Appreciate that. I'll now entertain questions from council. Are there any questions for the presenter? Seeing none? Again, thank you, Darcy. We appreciate that. Anything further, council? Councillor Bruno?
Thank you, Worship. Recall when we changed the bylaw to what it is now, and there was some concern about what the aftermath of that would be in terms of complaint resolution, and just how things rolled out. So I'm wondering if I could ask the chief if he could venture into that, if he has any numbers or anecdotal as to what the result has been since the change in the bylaw.
Chief?
Through the mayor to council, I did take the time. I knew the presenter was going to be here, and I just quickly brought up some stats in case you asked. The previous 5 years before this bylaw was changed, we averaged 62 complaints over a 5-year period. The year of the change, we went up to 102, almost doubling our normal complaints. With some education, 2021 we saw 83 complaints, and in 2022, 2 burning seasons after, we're down to 48 complaints a year. So we have seen a reduction in complaints compared to the previous no-burn bylaw.
Councillor?
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? Great. Thank you, council. And again, thank you to Darcy Cooley for bringing this forward. Next is the mayor's report. Yesterday was Victoria Day, the unofficial start of summer. And we all hope that everyone had a great long weekend. And it wasn't too hot, but it was just right for the opening of Nickel Beach, where I heard good things from people who were impressed with the parking lots, the new washrooms, and how much better the entrance looks and better serves beachgoers. The award-winning Splashtown Recreational Inflatable Adventure opens June 30th. Boaters were thrilled to be back at Sugarloaf Marina. It's now in full swing, and our parks are looking great. And we look forward to a busy summer ahead with lots of things going on. Please refer to our website, portcolborne.ca, for events and activities. Some of our staff were up at 4 a.m. this morning to set up the News Talk 610 road trip roundtable on Tim Dennis's morning show, live from the Roselawn Center. And that was from 6 to 9. Tim is from Port Colborne, and as many of you know, it was good to have him back to talk about Canal Days, Nickel Beach, Sugarloaf Marina, the cruise ships, museum and cultural activities, and Lighthouse Theatre. Let's do all our part to keep our city beautiful by cleaning up our properties on Clean Community Day this Saturday, May the 27th. Here's a list of things you can get rid of by taking them to the Operations Center on Clally West. Broken furniture, lawn chairs, broken toys, lawn ornaments, old buckets, cushions and mattresses, water-damaged books and magazines, and yes, even the old kitchen sink. All city events are in our City Hall News. Please subscribe to it on our website, and you'll get one every month by email. Refer to our website, and you'll always know what's happening in the city. And just a reminder, it's from 9 a.m. to noon, or once the bins are full, so it could close early. So I would tell you not to arrive at 5 to 12 because you might not get in. Try to arrive as early as possible. We had a super turnout of children and their families at Fire Station 1 the weekend before last for Community Safety Day. Children got to be the firefighters and heavy equipment operators and participated in a bicycle rodeo coordinated by the Port Colborne Optimist Club. We all learned the importance of smoke detectors and other important safety lessons in and around our homes. Kudos to staff and Sparky the fire dog who put so much into this annual event. Congratulations to all the children who won brand new bicycles, and many thanks to Aubrey Foley and the Broken Spoke team at Port Colborne High School for helping with the bike rodeo and for providing bicycles for children that didn't have them. For those that do have old bikes and you want to get rid of them, call City Hall. We'll get you in touch with Aubrey and his team. Please donate them. It's a great cause, a great program, and those bikes are shipped not just within the city but across the world. If only our bus was magic last week on the way to Toronto. Being stuck in traffic for almost 3 hours is not fun for anyone. Most of Regional Council and all 12 Niagara mayors and CIOs attended Niagara Day in Queen's Park. We met with MPPs and provincial ministers and the Premier to discuss Niagara issues as well as issues from our individual cities and towns. It's always good to have face-to-face discussions with our provincial counterparts so they're up to date on the good works we are doing. I do have to say kudos to the staff at Queen's Park for getting our busload of people through security in a quick manner. The event started a little after 5 and we didn't get there till almost 6:30. And we left early in the afternoon. We unfortunately hit a 6-car pileup. There was a fatality and we were about 3 hours stuck in Mississauga. So it was unfortunate because we did miss some of the people that some of us do deal with on a monthly basis within Queen's Park. So, but we did get to see our local MPPs and several other MPPs from across Ontario, which was great. As a member of the Niagara Regional Police Services Board, I cheered the Niagara Regional Police team in the annual cross-border tug-of-war contest with American law enforcement from Niagara Falls, New York. The Rainbow Bridge was packed with spectators and police police of every stripe and rank on Saturday, May the 13th. This is a great event of solidarity and camaraderie, but it's even better when Canada wins. Both the men's and women's teams were victorious. Women's team won the first 2 of a 2 out of 3 to retain their gold medal, and then the men lost the first tug and then won the next 2 to take 2 of the 3 that they did and to retain their gold medal with that. It was great. I mean, so we start at the top of Clifton Hill. We have our almost our full pipe and drum corps that lead the parade. We have our flag bearers. We have the police chief, the deputies, senior officers, the police board, and then our team marching in behind. And the crowd was huge. It was out on social media. We thank the city of Niagara Falls for that. But there was tons of people taking videos and everything, even from the balconies of the hotels. So we come down the bottom, we make our left-hand turn, we get onto the Rainbow Bridge, which half is closed off. We march to the middle, and I'm sure they can hear us well into Niagara Falls, New York, our band going. The Americans came across with 1 piper. So I said to the mayor of Niagara Falls, New York, I said, hey, hope you didn't think it was an invasion of 1812 again, because we outnumbered you. But it was a great day and beautiful weather, but just the camaraderie and our cousins over in the States and both met at the center, and unfortunately there is a winner and a non-winner, but the 2 teams, they all got together after the event, and a lot of good handshaking and a lot of good friendships made over many years. This has been going on for over 40 years, and Canada I think has lost twice. So, but yeah, it's always a good event. Councillors Bruno and Hoyle and I head back to Toronto tomorrow afternoon for the annual Federation of Municipalities Conference. Delegates from across the country will attend FCM. We all hope to learn how other cities and towns are dealing with similar issues, adapting infrastructure for our changing climate, best practices for building and planning, affordable housing, homelessness, public transit, brownfield development, tourism, economic development, building great public spaces and facilities, sustainable farming. So many issues facing all of us who are in decision-making positions. We hope to learn a lot and bring home some new ideas. The grade 10 civics class from Lakeshore Catholic High School took over council chambers last Thursday morning. Teachers Margaret Banco and Joanne Capretta walked over with 35 students to learn about the workings of City Hall and city government. The students elected a mayor and council, appointed some senior staff directors, and debated an issue of whether or not to proceed with a major expenditure. It was educational for them and for us. We all enjoyed the question and answer period after the council meeting exercise, and our next class visit will be a week from this Friday, when Carrie Gillespie's grade 1 class from St. Patrick's School comes to tour and learn about some of the many things we do here at City Hall. And we're already past the halfway mark of May, so here's a general reminder to community groups to get your grant applications in by June the 30th. If you received a grant in the first allocation in January, you may not apply for the second allocation. Charitable groups which might need some financial help with a special project or program, please find the application and all its guidelines on our website, portcolborne.ca. Again, the deadline is June the 30th. It'll be here before we know it, so please get those applications in as soon as you can. With that, Council, that ends my mayor's report. Any questions? The regional councillor is not here this evening. Are there any regional council questions? Great, thank you. Staff remarks. Steve, I'll start with you. Mr. Szapowski?
Good evening, Council. I have a number of updates. Public Works has been very busy, and wanted to give you a brief overview of some of the higher profile projects that impact the public. So the first off, I had the Sugarloaf archaeological excavation. So earlier this year, we provided an overview of the archaeological work that was required on Sugarloaf Street. Through more recent discussions, we have decided to postpone the archaeological work and book the work for later this fall. As we come closer to that date, we'll be sure to provide council another update and then also provide notices to the adjacent residents. Next, we have the Valley Health and Wellness Center roof. We also wanted to inform council that the contractor is still actively working on the roof and gutter system, and we are not anticipating any delays at this time. Also, at the Valley Health and Wellness Center, we have our contractor, which just completed the installation of the new cooling tower. So the ice plant is fully operational, and staff are currently building ice for painting and logo installations. We're happy to say that the ice will be ready for the first week of June. Next, we have our City Hall roof replacement project. We're currently working to finalize a contract with our contractor and are anticipating a start date in early June. During this time, there will be construction work taking place around the exterior of the City Hall, but all services will remain open. Next, we have construction on the pedestrian bridge at H.H. Newell, which we have just started now, and we're still on track to meet the completion deadline in early June. You may have also noticed at H.H. Newell that we have installed the event lighting around the perimeter of the park. This project is soon to be completed and will be provided and will provide events at the park with much needed lighting. On an operational note, we've also started our annual ditching program. A full list of the ditches to be completed is available on the city's website. We've also started hydrant flow testing, and our rural roadside mowing program will be starting early next month. Our Director of Corporate Services has also asked that I provide a recreation update as he is away tonight. So first we have an update on Nickel Beach's opening weekend. On Friday and Saturday, no passes were sold due to the poor weather, but lots of residents were down checking out the new layout and asking questions. Several local residents took advantage and parked for free. On Sunday and Monday, 24 parking passes and 4 beach chairs were sold in Zone 1, and 6 parking passes were sold in Zone 2. We have also sold 4 gold passes and 6 platinum passes so far. The beachgoers and residents had positive comments about all the beautification and new washrooms. Next, we have the Valley Health and Wellness Center food concession. So we're working with our solicitors to finalize a contract with a new vendor to be up and running by August. Council should expect to see a report soon, more than likely at the second meeting in June. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Steve. Gary, do you have any updates?
Nothing this evening.
Chief, do you have any more after your
I've got
presentation?
one. You stole one from me, Mr. Mayor. Community cleanup and safety day were a success. Safety day, I'd just like to thank all the community partners that did come out. Without them, the event just wouldn't be the same. Simon, if you could tee that picture up. I talked a lot a few months ago about Camp Molly. It's a camp for young females 15 to 18 to get a glimpse of what the fire service would be like. It was held several weeks ago. I think it was 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th of May in Niagara Falls. 35 Niagara residents participated. Port Colborne was very fortunate. We had 7 residents actually get to that camp, enjoy 4 days of learning a little bit. And on either end, those are our volunteer firefighters that volunteered for 4 days, believe it or not, Sarah Colbuck and Jen McKnight. Just a great day, and I'd like to kind of throw that out as I talked about retention and recruitment, and I think this could be a tool that down the road, if we can continue to do things like this in the region, will help us out immensely. So kudos to the 7 residents of Port Colborne for participating in that. That's
Great.
everything.
Thanks, Chief. Any further staff updates? Nothing from clerk's office? Councillors' remarks. I think I started with Councillor Bonner last week. Councillor Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The only update I have is for the Shirkston Community Center. They are having a fashion show on June the 4th from 1 to 4. I think tickets are $20. I can't remember, but it's on the Shirkston Community Facebook page if anybody's interested.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Beauregard.
I have no remarks.
Councillor Bagu.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Steve, for answering most of all my questions tonight. I appreciate that. And also kudos to Mr. Mayor, the Parks and Roads. They probably get a lot of emails from me in the last week. People are calling me, emailing me, and I pass it forward to Curtis or Steve or Ian Roberts, and it's getting done too fast. And like, I shouldn't complain, but people are going to start expecting things to get done the next day. And but I do really appreciate it. And there's things that have been going on for about 3 years, and we had a meeting with Curtis and Ian Roberts and the concerned resident, and say, hey, we'll take care of it next week for you, no problem. So kudos to you guys. I really appreciate it. The only other thing I had, Mr. Mayor, I put in my concerns. It's not a really concern. It's a council request for budget for 2024 budget. I talked to, sent an email to our Brian Bowles and requesting that a request for 2024 budget, accessibility apparatus on the dock at the marina. For I know I brought up earlier, and there was talk about it in the Hummed and Hod, and the cost it is expensive, but so I put the budget request in, Mr. Mayor, and hopefully they can take care of it. The other item, Councilor Bruno and I talked way back in ice was still in the bay about a fish cleaning station. We had complaints from fishermen that use the launch ramp, and they're lucky enough to catch a few nice fish, and there's nowhere to clean them except for home. Like, the marina has a fish cleaning station, but only occupants of the marina can use the fish cleaning station there. The boaters go to the launch ramp, but not allowed on the docks, apparently. So I put a request there, and Mr. Bowles talked about they are working on something, and it might not even have to come up to budget next year. So I do appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. That's all I got, Mr. Mayor. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Actually, I should, maybe this is more region. I should have asked you in Fred's absence. So I'll ask the regional question first, but perhaps it is Steve and his crew, but I don't think so now that I look at it the second time. Second concession and Main Street Highway 3. The region's always cut that corner, and they've always cut it quite well, and there's been no problem. I don't know whether they have a new crew or a new person on it, but they've only cut half of what they did. So the homeowner at that corner is indicated that what's changed, he knows his property line and the regional line. The region's been very good at sticking to that line. I could give you the details later if you want, or if you want me to direct it to someone at the region or to
Sorry,
Fred.
you have second concession in the 140?
And, no, number 3, Main Street. It's not Second Concession, I beg your pardon, Second Avenue.
Second Avenue.
Beg your pardon, sorry.
Okay, Second Avenue is
Yeah.
MTO, I think, but Steve?
No, the region does cut that, though. They have been cutting it all these years.
Yeah, through your worship to Councillor Bruno. If you leave that with us, we'll contact the region, the MTO.
Great.
We'll determine exactly whose property it is, and then we'll see
Great.
where there might have been a change or what the issue is.
Of staff, yeah.
Go
Great,
through it.
thank you.
Thanks.
And just one more, I'm not sure who could answer this, maybe it's the acting CAO. In our last report about Nickel Beach, they talked about putting a surveillance camera in. And I know there was going to be a delay to get all the wiring and all that done. And I'm just wondering if we could ask, or if there's a possibility, I don't know where Valet's outermost surveillance camera is, but even in the event that we put ours in at that pole, it's great to have that surveillance camera there, especially with the real estate and assets that's there. But I'm wondering if there's any chance, they have a main guard station that probably has the monitors in it of all the cameras, and I'm just wondering if we could work with them, and if they've got somebody there looking at all the cameras, why not look at one more or a split screen, and they could be our eyes there. So that might be a worthwhile ask of Vail.
Scott?
Through the mayor to council, I can definitely direct that to Valet and get an answer for you. And if it's all right, I can just share that in an email
Sure.
when I do get that information.
Go ahead, thank you.
And just on the grass cutting, Steve is doing a bang-up job on speaking with the region and other municipalities on some shared services. So we actually talked about that at our last meeting with the region, which was about a week and a half ago. Steve, we were up there on another project. So yeah, so you'll see more things that they may be doing for us or we're doing for them. So kudos to Public Works.
Great.
Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Steve, just a quick question on what you were talking about, the postponement of the archaeological dig. Could you expand on that, the reason, if you're able to?
Yeah, through you, your worship, to Councillor Elliott. So basically, we did have our archaeologists actually scheduled in for a set period of time, but they did have other construction projects that they needed to attend as well too. So during our talks with the Aboriginal communities, Indigenous communities, there were delays that took us to a certain point where we had to say there wasn't going to be enough time that was going to be left for the archaeologists to complete their workload. So we made the decision at that time to say, you know what, we can postpone it to the fall. The ministry was okay with that determination as well too. So we made that decision to push it to the fall.
Okay, thanks. Are we talking like September, October? So it won't interfere with the summer events, canal days or anything like that? Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Councillor Danch?
Thanks for that, Mayor. Through you, and I guess we're picking on Steve tonight, and I guess we'll echo what Councillor Baggy said, because things have happened too fast here. So I've got a list of items that were on my agenda, and unfortunately most of them have been fixed up. King Street parking lot, close to Neff and Main, the grass was relatively high. I sent an email off to Steve this morning, sent him a picture as well. Well, that's done. We just got to get rid of the snow plow that's sitting on, and I know who owns it. Anyways, we had some weeds on Main Street sticking out where a tree was supposed to be. Well, the weeds are gone, and there's 2 new trees there, so that's 2. Just a little update, if we could. The tracks on Main Street are a constant issue. I get everybody banging on my door here. I know something was said about the paving guy's contract was up, and hopefully we could get something put in that thing there.
Through you, your worship, to Councillor Dant. So staff are currently working on that. Basically right now we're at the point where we're applying for a permit from the region because it will involve closing Main Street down as a whole. So we are getting our own traffic control company to come in to perform that shutdown. We'll get the permit from the region, and then we do have an asphalt company that is already retained. Now it's just getting all of the contracts aligned to make sure that everyone's available at the same date. So that is active right now, and we are hoping it'll be completed within the next month. So that'll involve asphalt in the middle and sides of the rail at this time. There still is a little bit of an elevation difference, so there won't be a huge impact to that elevation difference because the whole rail itself would need to come up at that point. But the asphalt surrounding it will be leveled out.
Okay, that's great, because if you take the time to walk by, you can see the trailer hitch marks and stuff like that that are, hit the, and not everybody knows that you gotta slow down there, and why should you sometimes, but anywho, that's good to know.
So on that, Councillor, Steve and I have been working with our rail company, Geo Rail, on it. There was some damage to some of the tar pavement from the derailment.
That one like that?
Yeah, big piece on the north side. So with that and the area between the rails, we were able to work together and try to get all that done at one time. The other issue Steve and I discussed was getting in touch with the St. Lawrence Seaway Authority with regards to when they redid the bridge. They actually brought it up too high for the rail crossing, which is not our jurisdiction. Quite frankly, the whole road's not ours, so we have to work with everybody with our rails. So Steve and I will be working with the Seaway on that. If they have work in the near future, I mean, it could be 5 years, I consider that near future. With regards to any repaving there, that if they do a shave and pave it, they actually can go lower at that end of the bridge so we can flatten that out as much as possible. So I appreciate Steve's work with Geo Rail, and we look forward to working with the Seaway on that one for you. Thanks.
Moving right along, the library sign, the backing is missing. It has been for over a month. I think I said something to Joe there, and can we get the contractor back to fix the thing? I mean, it's a brand new sign, it's all lit up, it looks wonderful, but that white thing that's missing in behind it, it just has to be re-glued in there or something like that. I don't know what's so tough about fixing this one. I didn't even tell you about this one, Steve, but down on King Street, kind of close to the walk path, I think it's 14 King Street or something like that. Last year, that property was never maintained. It was always a weed fest there. It looks like it's heading the same way again this year. Can we get maybe bylaw to get on that one? Because, it's frustrating. I mean, I go walking by there most mornings, and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Is that across from West Pier Marine?
Yep.
The big vacant lot there?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And my last point there, the one-way sign that's got the broken sandbank sitting on it on Canal Bank, that's part of the leftovers from the train derailment when I was on vacation, which was March the 15th. It's still there. I mean, the post is broken. It needs to have a new post installed and a one-way sign reinstalled, and the one that's sitting on a 4x4 out of there. So we can look after those. I think you're at about 75%, which is pretty good. I can't complain. Thank you.
Anything to add, Steve?
Yeah, we'll carry on with the remaining 25%, and we'll get those ones done as soon as possible.
Perfect.
Councillor Hoyle.
Through the mayor, to staff, really, Councillor Demaray's dealt with this in the past. It has to do with Snyder Docks and the dust. It seems residents along Welland, are getting dust on their again. So if we can have Snyder Docks, I believe, to start doing their dust program. I know a couple of their containers are on the ground, so they'll have to go back up because I think they were used as a barrier.
Yes.
For along there. So if we could reach out to them and
Scott, you'll take that one?
give them a heads up.
Through the mayor, I can take care of Snyder's issues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bodnar.
Nothing tonight. Staff's taking care of everything already. Thanks.
Perfect.
And I'm at 100%.
Good for you.
Just saying.
On to consideration of items requiring separate discussion. Those were the three items that were pulled. So item 8.2 will be first. Bear with me, let me pull this up. Agreement for funding from Vail, Canada. The Community and Safety Enforcement Department Report 2023-79 be received. That the Chief Administrative Officer be directed to execute the gift agreement between Valley Canada Limited and the City of Port Colborne. If I could have councillors Bodner and Hoyle move that. Chief, you want to speak to this before I go to questions?
Through the mayor to council. We started working with Valet Canada, I'm going to say early fall of 2022. They had some questions about our abilities to mitigate any hazmat emergencies that they may have. We were fortunate enough to do an emergency drill with them, city staff and Valet personnel, just to kind of see what they needed and what we could provide. After that drill, we had some pretty good conversations with their safety division and formulated an idea where the partnership between Valet and Port Colborne Fire and Emergency Services would benefit not just Valet but the city as a whole. With that, whenever you do an upgrade, there's funds that are needed, and Valet has stepped up to offer those funds to us with an increase in equipment, training, not an increase in equipment, I'm going to say an upgrade in equipment, the big one being air monitoring and some safety equipment for our personnel.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Baggy, you have a question on this one?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the chief there, on page 2 of your report, when I read it, I sort of had a question about it. It says, while the city's full-time staff is trained to a higher level for hazardous materials, they are not trained to the level that allows direct interventions. You're talking about the full-time staff. What about the volunteers? Are they involved in any of this at all, or there's nothing in the report I see about the volunteers?
Chief?
Through the mayor to council. So the volunteers are trained, all our volunteers are trained to the operation level. Our full-time staff are specific or mission specific trained. By all means, I mean, we would have no issue with the volunteers training to that level. We're looking at, we need 8 to 10 staff members maximum to fulfill our obligation under the program that we're going to get into. When you're at that level, the command officer should be at a technician level, and the GO team should be at the technician level. We're not in the situation where we would need 20 or 30 people to mitigate an issue.
Councillor.
Okay, thank you. Only because I was trainer at Valet, and I trained the responders, the employees for hazardous materials to fix leaks and stuff like that. So, okay, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Any further questions on this one? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Item 8.3. Lock 8 Pavilion Condition Assessment. The recommendation that Public Works Department Report 2023-96 be received. That the manager of road and parks and park operations be directed to demolish and remove the Lock 8 Pavilion for safety reasons. That the total estimated cost of $15,000, excluding applicable taxes for the demolition project, be approved. If I could have Councillors Bagu and Bruno move that. We do have a staff member here. You're going to give us an overview before we go to questions, or do you want to just take questions? Okay. I'm going to go to Councillor Bagu first. Councillor Bagu.
Well, I must have said my quest early before all the other councillors, eh, Mr. Mayor?
You did. You're on the ball today.
I'll just slow down next meeting. Thank you, Curtis, for being here. Even the report mentions it's not under the Heritage Act or anything like that, or under the museum and stuff, but it has that ambiance of a heritage feel. And I'm just worried that if we take this thing down and rebuild it somehow, we're going to lose the heritage feel of it. I see on TV now they're advertising LED fireplaces even, like they're not even real. But and the stone for the fireplace hearth and the chimney, if it can be reused somehow, or actually even reused to the museum and some of the timbers, if we're not going to use them anymore, because maybe somebody in the museum has a great idea if these timbers are from the construction of the locks, I guess. So I just want to be assured that if we do rebuild, it's going to be have the air that's real, not too modern. You tell I'm old, eh?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So part of this process would be public consultation. So that would be taken into consideration, and we would design it as such to that standard of what the residents would like to see in council for that matter. So yes, we could factor in the heritage components.
Perfect, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bruno.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Curtis, for the report and getting on to the condition there for safety reasons that it's taken out of commission in the interim. So I looked at this report. What I like the most about it is that we're going to have this grand plan redesign of Lock 8. And I think that's as striking as the report itself. I'm not sure, just with regards to the region and its public realm investment program, is this a matching fund thing? And why I'm going there is because at the end of the day, this whole issue of the existing pavilion or a new pavilion or a relocation, and then there's the issue of the parking lot, all is going to come back to money. And I believe one is contingent on the other, not just about money, but I'm assuming you're going to move the playground, maybe move the pavilion. There's the parking lot, whether that's either just for the fountain area, the playground, or is there going to be a second one, as we talked about, for the skateboard park? So I think the best thing about this report is there's going to be a grand plan, and I would hope it would be before any of these decisions are made so that we can see exactly where things are going. So with respect to the Region's Public Realm Investment Program, what can you tell us about it? And is there a dollar figure that each municipality has in mind? Is it matching funds? Can you give us some insight on that program?
Curtis? Steve?
To you, Your Worship, to Councillor Bruno. So we actually applied for this program for Lions Field, and we were successful with it. So part of that application included multiple fields of where we could apply. So there was a section where we could apply for fencing, there was a section where we could apply for trees, and there was sections that we could apply for signage or murals. And all of them had a different varied percentage that they would contribute. So it does vary based on the project and the entities within the project. They will only fund entities that are along their regional right-of-way as well too. So this would be along Mellenby. So they wouldn't necessarily fund a pavilion that's within the park or playground in the park, but they would fund sidewalks or trails that running adjacent to their roadway, trees, fencing, ideas like that. So not necessarily everything within that conceptual plan that we will be presenting to council later this year will be covered within that funding, but we do want to have a holistic plan like you mentioned, and have council's buy-in for a long-term plan. We might not be building this thing all next year, but we want to have a sense of where everything's going so that we do take that into consideration when we do build the next phase of it. There will be, the initial thought is to have a tourism area near the north end, and then a section for kids and skate parks near the south end, with an extra parking lot that would accommodate that area. So we are looking forward to building that conceptual plan, and we will be working with the region. The region will actually be constructing that conceptual plan based off of our thoughts and ideas, consultation, council input, then we can finalize a long-term plan for that park.
Okay.
Councillor?
Thank you very much. So when I look at the numbers that are here, I see that it's $15,000 to demo that. I had a chance to walk over there and have a look at it. So the concrete base has got some cracks in it and may have some issues. Whether that stays or doesn't stay is, again, dependent upon the plan, whether it can be reused or not. So I look at this as it's $70,000 to repair, but I don't know that we want it there. it's 150,000 is the estimated cost for new. So that if that doesn't include the tear down, that's 165. In the other bucket, I see the number 70,000 to repair. So right off the bat, there's a distinction. That distinction may be warranted if the pad's involved, if you wouldn't want to repair it there because it doesn't go there. So to me, without the plan, you don't know whether to take the lower price reno versus the new price fits better when you see the whole picture. So, I mean, from my point of view, with the information I have now, I'd like to keep it out of service, but I really want to see the bang for the buck with the alternative of another one, because fundamentally, just on an expense basis, it actually makes sense to repair it. It's got a new, or relatively new, I should say, steel roof on it. But I don't want to throw good money after bad if it doesn't go there in the first place. So from my point of view, until I see that, I'd like to see this, but I'm not going to say the R word yet. I'll let other councillors speak. Thank you.
Just for clarification, Curtis, the demolition is the entire facility, or the entire building? Concrete base, everything?
Yes, that's correct. The entire structure. The intention would be to take it down to slab, remove the slab, and basically sod it.
Yeah, okay, just so everybody knows. Okay, Councillor Danch?
Thanks for that. Curtis, I did some research on my own. Like I say, I do walk through that park most mornings. Those are 10 by 10 fir timbers. So I made a call or two. If we want to replace those timbers, 9 timbers at the same size would look characteristic to what you have now, $3,150. That's with my 150% markup that I would charge you. If you went pressure treated, you'd be $2,250. So just over $2,000. You would use an elevated post base. It would be something that goes at the base of them. They're designed for that. They keep the post 1 inch off the ground, which would help to prevent from rotting any further. $2,250. So I got about $5,000 to $6,000 in repair parts here, and I'm trying to find out where you guys are getting 70 grand to fix this thing. I talked to a contractor today, a local guy, and he said he'd do it for a lot less than that. So I'm not all in favor of tearing it down. I sometimes think that maybe a little repair is what you need. The cost just doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. I mean, material costs are material costs. Structurally, the thing looks pretty decent. The timbers are shot. There's no question about it. But I'd like to see it push between, pushing towards let's fix it up for now. You could support the roof, cut out the beam, get rid of the brickwork and stuff around it, and we'd still have a pretty decent pavilion there, and we'd be tens of thousands of dollars ahead, and maybe your idea can go down the road, and maybe we'll have 2 pavilions in that park, because it is it's a beautiful park. Just a little food for thought. That's what I do every day, is cost things out, and I just found it a little hard to take, so thank you.
So just to clarify the councillor's comments, with the 70,000, that is a new masonry, a new concrete pad, a full new concrete pad?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So the replacement value, what we spoke to the constructional engineer about, remediation specialist, was that's correct. The uprights are rotted through almost entirely on each pole. Also, the A-frame, which supports the roof structure itself, there's a significant amount of dry rot in the roof timbers. So essentially, the only salvageable piece would be the roof and the tin on top. And the other portion of that would need to be repinned is the entire mason work for the fireplace. It's starting to crumble and it's imminently going to collapse. So that's generally where the workload comes in. So the roof would essentially have to come out. And there would also additionally be, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, concrete slab repairs as well.
Okay. Just so we know what the entire scope of the project is. Okay. Any further comments from those that haven't spoken? Okay, Councillor Bruno.
Through you to Curtis, if the demolition were to happen, a new design location to integrate with the park, that likely wouldn't be completed in this summer season, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the intention would be to have the design done prior to the budget submission for council consideration at that point.
Okay.
Potentially phased approach.
So is there the possibility, till we get all the facts, all the drawings, to make that decision, to perhaps better than with caution tape and that, to just close the pavilion till arguably October, and then by that time or whenever we have the plans back for what the alternative were going to be and where it is? Because to me, it's there's no mileage in fixing something if it's not going to be there or needed. Although I hadn't thought of Councillor Danch's point of a second pavilion elsewhere, but I'm just not there yet that we have all the relevant information to make a well-informed decision. So I would like to defer this project until we have updated plans, and if it's feasible to just keep it barricaded off for the next 4 or 5 months.
Through to staff, safety issue.
Yep.
Is it safe to leave it because of the winds we get now and the storms we get in the fall? I mean, I just want to make sure that if we leave it, it doesn't blow down and.
Yeah, through your worship. We so our consultant that we had, they're professional facility experts, and they have come in and they've assessed almost all of our facilities here. So they do have some weight, and they've advised that we do shut it down. They've advised that we close it off. There is the potential that it could fall, and if it falls, it may not fall straight down. It may lean to the side one way or another. So there's always that potential. I know there was a couple rocks on the top of the chimney this year that were unstable and were close to falling. We did do a small repair just to make sure that the rest wouldn't collapse. But as Curtis mentioned, there are rocks that are potentially cracking or mortar that's cracking. A lot of the cost does come from that chimney work and trying to get that lime mortar, the same mortar that they were using for that time. So yeah, just so there is the potential. I think if that is the case, we would have to widen off a much larger area just to be on the safe side. Yeah, so it is possible, but I would just keep in mind that there is the potential that it could collapse in the area, and it is a highly used park as well.
So
No, you can't. You can't do a referral or deferral. You've already spoken on it.
all right.
Just, I gotta follow the rules, man. I was gonna give you an alternative, but I see Councillor Baggy with his hand up. Councillor Baggy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Director Steve, option 2, if council approves it, is there a timeline for this? If council approves, say, option 2 tonight?
Through your worship, to Councillor Bagu, we don't have an exact time frame today. We would move on this as soon as possible. It's the same if there was a choice to demo it. We would end up getting the permits right away and then taking it down. If we want to do the repairs, we would initiate that with the contractor as soon as possible.
You all set with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further from councillors? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Steve and Curtis. Kind of thinking along the same way as Councillor Bruno, with not enough information in the 3 options. We haven't gone to the public to see what they would want. The repair cost at 70 is repairing what's existing. We don't even know if that's an option that we want. The full build out at 150 would be the demolition and the immediate replacement of it. But we don't even know, any of us, if that's what we want. So all of the options are, okay, this looks good, but 2 looks good, but 3 looks good, but there's conditions attached to all of them, which can we brace it so that it won't fall temporarily and block it off so that nobody has access to it, so that it's secure and stable, that it won't blow down or fall down. And then if we're going to redo the park, at least have public consultation into it. People may want to see the roof kept and reused. We may end up wanting to rebuild in the same place, but there's no concept to base it on right now. And there's no input from anybody. There's no plan to say, this is what we want, this is what we're thinking, what does the public want, what does council want? So it's hard to make the decision to tear it down or to replace it. But I'm kind of thinking, like Councilor Bruno said, if we could hold it till we get some more feedback from several people, especially the public, to say, what do you want us to do? Because there may be some things that we want to keep. I know that the timbers are rotted, but there may be pieces of them that we can use somewhere else in the park and have a display that this was from the original structure. So I would like to see if we can brace it up, support it for now, go public with comments, and get some sort of plan in place before we do anything with it, just to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So those are my comments.
Yeah, so Counselor, in reading Steve and his staff's mind, that's what they've offered you here, because they do want to go out to do a reconfiguration of Lock 8 with public consultation. That's that whole Niagara Regional funding. That's all part and parcel of this. But I think they've given us this recommendation because it takes down a structure that is not safe. I mean, we've been told by our consultant it is not safe. We couldn't even use it during the opening of the canal, and that was the day before we received it. They had to fence it off right away. I mean, if Frank looked at it, the bottom of those pillars are rotted right through. So I wouldn't want to be the one standing underneath it when it somewhat falls. So just saying, I want to be as safe as possible here, we've been told. So, Councilor Beauregard.
Through your worship to Mr. Shafowski, or Curtis, if the structure is to be demolished, what will happen with all the debris, the structure itself? Can we still keep some of the beams and wood that have or may have some historical significance?
Steve?
Yeah, through your worship to Councilor Beauregard. We can keep materials. Typically, if we're rebuilding a pavilion, it would be of a steel material. There's different aspects that can give you that heritage feel, but they're mostly steel and HDPE plastics that they use nowadays. But there isn't any reason why we couldn't bring some of those existing materials, the wood beams, or even some of the masonry over to the museum, or use them in a different aspect of the park to build a column or some kind of statue, or use it for informational purposes within that same park.
Okay, yeah, if we proceed with the option that's recommended, or if the structures will be demolished, that we keep the materials that may have some type of significance. So, and for council or staff to decide what to do with them later on.
Okay. Anything further? Councilor.
Through you to Steve. So Steve, the idea of, Councilor Ellis talked about bracing it up. I'm just wondering if you can't just make the surround bigger. I mean, barring it taking off in a hurricane like we see on CNN or something, if it falls over, you wouldn't want it to be in the way of potentially anybody there. It just seems to me that we narrow the options, given that the new one isn't going to be there, nor should the new one be anywhere there without a full plan. It being barricaded with a bigger surround seems to me that we see that every day in this community with that kind of interlocking steel fence and that we have. it seems to me that without public input, or if you tear it down and you have parts of it on the ground, you're probably not going to go with putting it back up, whereas if you're repairing it and doing pillars, you'd probably do them one at a time with the roof still elevated, as opposed to it being down on the ground where you use parts of it. It just seems to me that we could have the best of all worlds by having the public input on the standing structure being maintained safely, the overall plan drawn, and we'll get a true value on all aspects of the price. And I don't know, to me that ticks all the boxes and lets you, buys you a little time to make the best decision. So I guess Mr. Mayor, I had a procedural question. Does this, would it have to be one of these options, or all of them defeated and then a new proposal, or
No,
not?
the only recommendation is what's written here.
Right.
You can
Amend it.
amend it. That's what my suggestion would be, if you want to amend it, would be to amend it so you can remove some of the stuff that's there, add in your amendment, which gets you what you want to, because as I said, you can't defer.
Okay.
It wouldn't be a referral anyways, it'd be a deferral with direction to staff, but
Thank you.
You can amend this.
Okay.
So we can vote on an amendment. So to give you an idea of what you've said, so you would actually take that the manager of manager of road and park operations be directed not to demolish or remove the Lockgate Pavilion, then take out for safety reasons. Then take out the last paragraph, and then you would put and to safely secure the pavilion.
Yep.
For the short, I don't know what the wording you want to use, Madam Clerk, but
Steve has an idea, I think.
Steve, you got an amendment they can use so that it brings in leaving it there, fencing it off, putting out the information with the region that you're going to have. You're going to go to public consultation on the entire park, including a pavilion, whether it's this one or another one.
Yeah, apologies, Your Worship. I just had a little further contribution, which may lead to this amendment as well. So I just wanted to clarify two things and maybe offer some advice. So first is the timeline. To get that regional program, so the PRIP program is typically released in May or June. There's no guarantees to that. The region has to approve that program. So we were anticipating public consultation and council consultation somewhere around the November to December mark. So we might not meet the budget timelines, but we can do some high-level budgeting for it at that point. Secondly, just looking at the mapping now, the major trail that runs through the park is approximately 3.5 meters away from that structure, so there is the potential that that gate structure could encompass that trail network and block it off. And then lastly, when we are doing the conceptual design, it's largely staff providing comments as to what we want. We're going to inform the region and our consultants of what our requirements are, what our wants, what our needs are, what the public wants, what council wants. And then they're going to come up with a master plan for us, something that will work for the city of Port Colborne. And one of the amendments, or part of the amendment, could be if council does want to keep that structure there, I think we could design the concept around that. I think that's something we're going to have to tell the region as the municipality whether we want to keep it there or not. So this would be an opportunity to say, yes, we do want to have it there, but then we know we want to rebuild. If we don't want it there, then there's the potential that we could take it down as well. So just something else for council to think of. We are going to have to give some input as to what we do want to do. So it could be an opportunity to tell the region for their conceptual designs as to what we do want to achieve. And from the sounds of it, sounds like we do want to keep it in that location at least.
Councillor?
Well, I'm not so sure we do want to. That's A. B, I'm sorry, I thought you were saying at the beginning that whether we have a pavilion there or not, that pavilion or a pavilion somewhere else, if it doesn't impact on that area like you talked about, fencing, trees, those kind of things, I guess I interpreted things along the regional road. So I'm thinking that you're talking about, road edge to 15 or 20 feet in, because they're not going to be funding, or are they going to even be concerned with that? So I'm just having a little difficulty with that part, Steve.
Yeah. So my apologies there. So you're right, the PRIP funding is only along the regional road. But as a whole, a park as a whole, we are going to be doing conceptual design that incorporates the area along the regional roadway and within the park, so it all ties together. So we would be presenting the conceptual plan for the park as a whole during the PRIP program.
Great, okay.
Incorporate that all together.
Yeah. I'd like to come back with that amendment, but you have one more counselor there if you want
to. David.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Steve. I was kind of thinking along the same way. Save it, rebuild it, design the park around it. Because actually, reading this, option one is 3. Right? There's only 2 options. Really? Option 1, tear it down, okay. But then you're at option 3, because then you got to rebuild. But if you just replace it or rehabilitate it, I just saved us $80,000. Because it's $150 to rebuild, brand new. It's only $70 to fix it. And I know it's only $70 to fix it. But if you say option 1, tear it down, then you're at option 3 again.
Yes, that's right.
So there's only really 2 options, right? There's not 3. You're going to spend 150 or 70. Those are the options. Now, do you want the pavilion where it is, or do you want to move it somewhere else? If you want to move it somewhere else, it's $150,000. If you want to leave it where it is, it's 70. That's where we are.
But,
Counselor?
I guess I think they are right with 3 though, because you can tear it down and well, yeah, then you can't repair it if it's gone. You're right. But if I think you need to leave 2 in until you decide what you want to do. So that's what I think it's still. I think they're still relevant. I think the mayor's idea of just safely securing the pavilion until such time as we have the master plan would be the way to keep all doors open.
That's right. Counselor?
Yes, because the public may come out and say they like it where it is and want it to be there. Rehabilitate it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Or tear it down, but that's still the right spot. Put the new one there.
yeah.
We don't know.
So one becomes 3 without the immediate replacement, if they want to have it completely rebuilt, right? So because 3 was tear it down and immediately rebuild it. So you could have 3 that says we're going to tear it down and not immediately replace it, but replace it if and when and where anybody wants. So that's why I would like to wait and just keep your fingers crossed that nothing happens, but just get some kind of input to find out what the feeling is in the community. What do they want? It's their park. We're spending their dollars to rehabilitate it. So, here's your chance to have your say. So that's what I'd like to do. If we can do it safely and cost effectively, so.
Okay. So Madam Clerk, in her wisdom here, because she's so good at this.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Councilor Bodnar.
Oh, sorry, Councilor Bodnar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just through you to Steve. Steve, you said that obviously if it's going to stay there, you're going to move that fence back considerably. You'll encroach on the trail that goes through there. Is it a big deal to encroach on that trail and just kind of mark out a thing in the grass around it? Wouldn't be great for maybe somebody that needs a hard surface, but for a short, is that even a possibility for short term?
Steve?
Through you, your worship, to Councilor Bonner. So from an accessibility standpoint, not a great idea to not do anything with the trail, because I'd be very I can almost guarantee that it will encroach on the trail, if not all of the trail, to block it off. There could be a means where we do place asphalt down on the ground to extend the trail out a little wider to make sure that there still is 1.8 meter trail for accessibility. I think that would be an option, since we are talking about going into next year, almost a full year from now at a minimum with this.
Yeah, because there's really 3 trails in there. One goes to the washrooms and 2 come from that far parking lot, but they meet at the pavilion and then go around the front of it. I was thinking, I wonder if there was one, I was thinking in my mind, is there one that circles the front of the pavilion, but there's not. So could you rebuild a piece short term for somehow?
Yeah, through your worship, I would say that we should be doing that. Might be, depending on the length, if we can widen it or if we have to bring a new trail in, could be about 10 to 15 at a maximum for something like that. I'm thinking closer to the 5 to 10 mark if we can just widen the area to be able to accommodate. So basically be a bump out of the trail system itself is what I would hope to. I would need to speak with the consultant first just to make sure that they're happy and they're satisfied with where the building could land. It is the northern side. We do get very strong south and southwest winds, so if it is going to fall, it's probably going to be to the north.
All right. So Madam Clerk has the Public Works Department Report 2023-96 be received, that the manager be directed to safely secure the pavilion until the master plan for Lock 8 Gateway Park is finalized and approved.
With the second paragraph including there, that it not be.
Yeah, the manager of road and park operations be directed not to demolish and remove the Lock 8 pavilion, and then take out for safety reasons.
Yes.
And that the manager be directed.
Right, she is brilliant.
Okay, so I'll just read it so everybody knows. The Public Works Department Report 2023-96 be received. The manager of road and park operations be directed not to demolish and remove the Lock 8 pavilion, and that the manager be directed to safely secure the pavilion until the master plan for Lock 8 Gateway Park is finalized and approved. And then the last paragraph is removed. If I could have Councilors Bruno and Danch move that. Frank, you're all right to second that? Questions on the amendment? Councilor.
Through you, Mr. Chair. I'm looking at our procedural tip sheet and I'm just kind of confused because like it has to be germane motion, and it says a motion to amend must be relevant and not in contravention of the original motion. Would this not be in contravention of the original motion, as the motion was to demolish and this is not to demolish?
Okay. Challenge the chair on it.
Pardon?
I said you can challenge the chair on it. I'll accept it as an amendment, but if you want to challenge the chair, I'll go to a vote, and then you can defeat this and bring up a new motion if you want. It's up to you. Doesn't bother me. Don't worry, I've done it at the region.
So you want me to, I would just say a point of order?
Okay, so I'll challenge the chair on his
Okay.
decision.
I'll say point of order, Madam Clerk, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are you, so would you like to challenge the motion that's amended, being proposed for amendment as of right now?
I'm just not going to fight this. It's okay. We'll just leave it.
I'm just saying that's the way you do it, though, just so
Okay.
you know. I've done it twice, I've won both times in the region. And it was nothing against the chair, it just, I'm like you, it was procedural bylaw, but yeah. I think you're gonna get in the same, it's gonna end up in the same place. Yeah, yeah. I fought it because I didn't agree with what he decided, and it was totally different, so we're gonna end up in the same place. Yeah. Counselor, go ahead.
So,
Yeah.
so the new motion, do we have to include the accessibility part of the trail, or is that just
That can be direction
going
to
to
staff.
be direction to staff?
Yeah.
Or the budget, if there's like a certain budget that's needed for it, then it'll have to be approved by council.
would you have that in your parks budget to fix the trail, in your current trail portion of your budget?
Yes, we will.
Yeah, so if it's a budgeted item, I mean, that specifically isn't the budgeted item, but it's part of the trail system, which is a budgeted item. Is that all right with council? They can take that as direction. Okay? Everybody understands the motion as amended? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. That ends that one. Okay. 9.3. Councillor Begg is asking us to bring forward the City of Cambridge resolution from May 9th, 2023, which the City of Cambridge has asked the province to amend the Highway Traffic Act. In essence, what it's asking is, right now you can have the mechanical speed devices within designated community safety zones, which are school safety zones. They want to expand that to allow municipalities to put that anywhere in the community. Councillor Baggy, is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
So if I could have Councillor Baggy move that we receive and support this, Councillor Baggy, correct?
Correct.
Okay, can I get a seconder for that? Councillor Hoyle? Does anybody want me to read this out, or does everybody have a chance to read it? You all have a chance to read it? Yeah? You're okay with it? Okay. Exactly. But it's expanding it beyond what we're allowed to now. I brought up a number of meetings ago with regards to certain school zones that are in our jurisdiction, plus one within the regional jurisdiction. I did receive emails that we should put it in other places. We're not allowed to. So what Cambridge is asking is that then we would be allowed to, so. Okay? Any questions? Further questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay. There's no motions. Are there any notices of motion? All right. Bylaws, or sorry, minutes. We have the minutes of the advisory, sorry, I forget the date here, of the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting of Wednesday, March the 8th, 2023, and the minutes of the Port Colborne Library Board of April 5th, 2023. If I could have Councillors Bagu and Aquilina move those. Are there any questions to either of those minutes? All in favor? That's carried. Bylaws. We have bylaws 20.1, 20.2, 20.3, 20.4. If I could have Councillors Beauregard and Elliott move those bylaws. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Okay, so we are going to be entering into confidential items. So the open portion of this meeting will end. We won't be coming back to video. So at this time, if I could have Councillors Bodnar and Hoyle move the council to now proceed into closed session in order to address the following matters. Items 21.1, minutes of the closed session portion of April 25th, 2023 council meeting. Item 21.2, minutes of the closed session portion of May 2nd, 2023 council meeting. Item 21.3, minutes of the closed session portion of the May 9th, 2023 council meeting. 21.4, Chief Administrative Office Report 2023-24, pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsections 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. 21.5, Chief Administrative Office Report 2023-97, pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392I, a trade secret or scientific, technical, commercial, financial, or labor relations information supplied in confidence to the municipality or local board, which if disclosed could reasonably be expected to prejudice significantly the competitive position or interfere significantly with the contractual or other negotiations of a person, group, of persons, or organization. I will be moving the two items. I'm going to flip 21.4 and 21.5, so Councillor Beauregard can stay for his item, stay for all the items except for the item that he has to declare conflict and he can leave. Any questions? All in favor? That's carried. Again, thank you for watching at home this evening, and for those that attended. Staff, good job tonight. Council, good debate, good questions. Thank you.